For the first time in 10 years, College Game Day makes its rightful return to Ames, Iowa. As Iowa State, currently ranked 8th in the country, they've hit the skids recently. They're going to look to shake off a 3-game losing streak back home inside historic Hilton Coliseum this afternoon. Legend has it, this arena explicitly built to hold in sound with its wooden ceiling. Couple that with a rabid fan base that has cast many a spell upon those who dare to enter. Welcome to Hilton Magic, and welcome to Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm here in Studio E in Bristol, Connecticut. Alongside Harry Lyles Jr., I'm Sam Ravech. We got you for the next 30, and a great show, too. We got Joe Lunardi coming on to talk brackets. R.J. Lewis Jr. Fresh off a great win for St. John's last night over UConn, and we'll talk to Jay Williams as well. You ever been to Ames, Iowa, Harry?
I have, and oh my goodness gracious, it's a great place.
Yeah.
Genuinely, not just because of the fans, great food. We had barbecue there when we went there for the Iowa State game back in 2021. Ordered a little bit too much. I would caution against that for many reasons. But no, Ames is a fantastic place. The fans are awesome. I'm certain that environment there is off the chain.
Great food, great environment, great atmosphere. They're obviously known for their noise, and a local news station actually went to Hilton Coliseum before a basketball game recently, and they measured the noise decibel and the sound decibels in the arena. And it was that close to a jet engine before takeoff. Like, that's how loud it was. So let's see how loud it is this morning as we're now joined by Andraya Carter ahead of College Game Day. Dre, I know it's incredibly loud in there. It's been a while since College Game Day has been back inside Hilton Coliseum. How are the fans feeling this morning?
Yeah, the fans are great. It's not yet packed in here, but they are filing in. This student section has been absolutely incredible. I'm very impressed. I have been to Hilton Coliseum before. I do love this place, and the fans have been phenomenal to start the morning.
Andraya, what do you need to see from the Cyclones today to make sure that those fans are going to be screaming just as loud now as they will be later on this afternoon?
Yeah, you know, one thing Coach TJ Otzelberger talked about was how he feels like sometimes their offensive struggles have taken away from what they are known for, and that is their defense. I mean, this is a team that thrives off of forcing turnovers, getting out in transition. They're scoring 20 points per game off of turnovers. So that chaos that they like to create, especially at home with the crowd going crazy, those type of momentum plays on the defensive end are what I'm looking for Iowa State today.
Cyclones look to right the ship against TCU after losing 3 straight coming into this one noon Eastern time over on ESPN+. Andraya Carter, we'll see you on College Game Day in just a bit. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Dre. All right, so that's going to be a good one there. Obviously, Hilton Coliseum known for that atmosphere there, and those fans are just – they want to see this team succeed with TJ Otzelberger and everything, so that'll be one to watch. Lots of action going on across the country today. We will get to some of the key games here on this Saturday slate in just a bit, but before we do that, let's give a couple of shout-outs on this Saturday to some of the players, people, and places that have been so good to this game and so great to this game. When you speak of great in college basketball, there's really one name that is synonymous with all of it, and that is Dick Vitale, who makes his rightful return to the sidelines here today. His much anticipated and deserved return as well after battling cancer for the past 3.5 years. Announced he was cancer-free on January 8th, and he will be on the call for number 2 Duke at Clemson, 6 p.m. Eastern time with OB, Dave O'Brien, and Corey Alexander for that game on ESPN. I mean, Harry, you think of college basketball, you think of Dick Vitale. This is at the University of Virginia a couple of years ago. Some guy actually came up and asked if he could hop in our picture. I don't know who that is, but yeah, that was a special moment there.
That's awesome, man. And you know, it's not even just that he is recognizable and synonymous with college basketball. He is genuinely one of the signature voices of all of sports, right? I mean, growing up, you and I'm sure we all knew Dick Vitale. He was even on the Jock Jam CD, right? Like,
legendary.
We all recognize him as when you hear his voice, it takes you to certain places, and that is how you know that you are a legend.
Yeah, big shout out to Dick Vitale, who, again, like, seeing him back on the sidelines, I know he's been battling with this for so long, but this is where he belongs, and I got to imagine it feels really good for him.
Without a doubt. And, you know, another shout-out that we need to do, this Player of the Year race, Sam, that we are having right now between Johni, Broome, and Cooper Flagg has been absolutely fantastic. We have two of the best players in all of college basketball going up against one another. Obviously, Johni Broome had taken the lead early on during the season, had his injury, and then we see the emergence of Cooper Flagg and some of the big performances that we've had. Very, very rarely do we have the two best players in the country playing on the two best teams, and there's really not a third-place player right now. Just to watch this race, and also, Sam, I think the thing that sticks out to me about this is the different type of players. Like, we're seeing old-school college basketball, right? Johni Broome, a veteran, and then the new school with Cooper Flagg as well.
It's fantastic. You probably got to go back to the J.J. Redick, Adam Morrison days when we've had a race that has had two players that are playing on the best teams, and they are the best players on those teams. It's just so awesome to watch these two do what they do. And you're right, like, they're doing it in different ways. They're doing it on different teams and different styles. But nevertheless, this is going to be a hotly contested debate, I think, down the stretch of the season. We'll see how that goes. Let's give a shout out to the West Coast, but maybe not for the reasons that you might think. We're giving a shout out to USC and UCLA specifically for what they have done to Michigan State over the last week. Sorry, Shelby, our producer, who went to Michigan State. But yeah, Michigan State came back from Maui having not lost a game for 13 straight. And then they go out to the West Coast and they lose games to USC and UCLA, who Mick Cronin, by the way, was really miffed that he had to spend like 10 straight days on the East Coast. He's back home, and they've won a couple in a row, so that's impressive. But, yeah, Sparty not doing great on the West Coast.
Yeah, no, and it feels worse because it does come from those two teams. Like, I think people need to realize, like, the whole part of the funkiness, if you will, of the conference realignment, specifically with a lot of the former Pac-12 teams coming to the Big Ten, was the difficulty of the travel. And so to see two of these West Coast teams, I mean, it's no shade on Michigan State, but it is very impressive by both USC and UCLA to come out to East Lansing and be able to get the job done the way that they did.
That matters because we saw it all football season as well with the new conference realignment. Like, that matters. You're going on a long plane ride. You got to spend some time away from your own bed.
Yes, and I'll tell you this, Sam, like, they're not comparable necessarily, but I truly did not appreciate how difficult it actually is to go on the road and play sports until I started going on the road for work. And I'm like, dude, I'm not even playing 40 minutes of basketball, and I'm tired. Like, these guys, like, that is a real struggle.
Crazy.
And speaking of other shout-outs, we got to give one to my guy, Leonard Hamilton.
No doubt.
A legend, an absolute legend, 76 years old, Florida State, one of the more recognizable coaches in all of college basketball. We've obviously lost a lot of greats to retirement. Coach K, Roy Williams.
In that conference.
In that conference specifically. He's been with them since 2002, but coached at the Division I level for almost 40 years. He's the latest, again, legendary ACC coach to step down. We mentioned Roy Williams, Coach K. Jim Boeheim was another. Tony Bennett, surprisingly, over the past year. And Jim Larinaga as well. He was also the first black SEC assistant when Kentucky hired him in 1974 and paved the way for so many others, like Dennis Gates at Missouri. So to see Leonard Hamilton, who also, by the way, dropped the skincare routine, my man, because he does not look a year of 76 years old.
He looks amazing. And look, like, it may not have ended great. I know they're dealing with some lawsuits there at Florida State with some of the players, but like what he has built in Tallahassee, and not just there, throughout the country, such a formidable figure and somebody that is really synonymous with the game of college basketball as well. So, it's tough to see there's so many coaching spots open this year, and we're also going to see probably another one open in a blue blood program at Indiana. We're giving a shout out to Coach Woodson here, Mike Woodson. And not all shout-outs are going to be positive here, but this one, a tumultuous ending. We were just told yesterday from reporting from our friends Pete Thamel and Jeff Borzello that Indiana Mike Woodson kind of in discussions about the coach's wishes to step away at the end of the 2024-25 season. Expected to coach the rest of the season, Lyles, but I'm not going to put it past him. If this thing keeps going south, like, they've lost 4 in a row here, I don't know if he will be there by the end of the season if this thing keeps going the way that it is.
Yeah, it's interesting. Indiana, historically, they have been quick to move on from coaches if it hasn't worked out, but they usually don't do it in season. I personally feel bad for Mike Woodson. He has been part of legendary teams as a player with this Indiana program, and we know how just the history of the program, and I can tell you personally what it means to people, not just in Bloomington, but the state of Indiana in general. I think if they're going to get this train back on the tracks, it's time to look outside of what you know. You need to go find somebody, some fresh blood. This is a new look college basketball. Find somebody that is going to bring your program back, because, quite frankly, it has not been the same since
Who would
Bob
you want to
Knight
see?
left.
I mean, what are some of the names that you wouldn't mind seeing?
A name that I think Shaka Smart comes to mind. I don't know what his buyout situation is, because Marquette's a private school. Chris Beard is somebody that comes to mind. If you're Indiana, though, and you want to fix this tomorrow, you need to call Bruce Pearl, call his agent,
Get that
ask
bag
how
out.
many zeros you need to put on the end of that contract if you want to fix this ASAP.
Yeah.
That's what they need to do.
It's gone south really quick. Indiana, a team that was in the preseason top 25, just has not worked out this season. We mentioned at the top of our shout-outs, Dick Vitale making his rightful return to the sidelines today. Here's Dick giving a positive message to the entire college basketball world.
Hey guys, I just want to simply say I cannot believe I'm going to be calling the game. I want to thank you all, Jimmy Pitaro and all the colleagues, all the messages, all the prayers. Really, if there any participation that might be listening, remember to always think positive and have faith. God bless. You're in Iowa State. We'll be rocking and rolling there tonight. I'm going to have a little fun here too.
Fresh off the game of the season in the Big East last night between St. John's and UConn, we're now joined by R.J. Lewis Jr. fresh off the win. R.J., thanks for waking up with us early on Countdown to Game Day this morning.
Of course. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. I got to go back to the first half. You guys down by 14, 26-12 inside Gamble. And for a lot of teams, that can be curtains. I've been to a lot of UConn games before. Timeout was called. And normally on these broadcasts, what is great is we get kind of the cameras in there and we can hear what the coaches are saying. But we were told on the broadcast, actually, that Coach Pitino waved that camera crew off during that timeout. I got to know, what did Coach Pitino say in that timeout that got you guys going?
Definitely, basketball's a game of runs. So when they had went up and they went on their run, they came out on fire. They were shooting the heck out of the ball and they couldn't miss. And he was pretty mad, so that's why he didn't want the cameras in there. But he just told us that that we've been in this position before. We've been down before, and then it's really just to keep on fighting and coming back and really just sticking to our defensive principles that we kind of got away from a little bit. We was doing some things uncharacteristically, but we honed in on that, and really the defense is just what got us going, and that led to offense.
RJ, a win like this to me shows the difference between this year's team and last year's team. What do you feel like have been the things that have allowed you guys to grow from last season to this season? Because you guys already have 22 wins. You had 20 all of last year. We still got a whole another month of basketball left. What has been the key for you guys to improve the way that you have?
It's crazy. I'm still trying to soak it in. This season doesn't feel real. Like you said, last year it took us the whole season to get to 20 wins, and we're already at 21 wins. So, it just feels great. I think the main reason is definitely just shout out to all my teammates, the transfer portal guys that we brought in, Kadari Richmond, Davon, Aaron Scott, 3 and D. And I think it's just all credit to Coach Pitino. He does a great job in his second year and coaching up the guys. But I think the main difference is definitely just the hunger that we have, the passion we're playing with, and just the defense that we're bringing in every night. Even though we're not shooting the ball too well from the three, but we just figure out a way to win, and we play hard.
Yeah, Coach Pitino has also kind of lamented the fact that he struggles to watch sometimes you guys shoot from the three, but I'll tell you what he doesn't struggle to do. Watch you guys guard the ball. Like, you guys are one of the more physical and just electric teams defensively at guarding man on man. Where does that principle come from, and why are you guys so good at forcing turnovers? You forced the two-time defending champs to turn it over 22 times last night on their home floor. Why are you guys so dominant on the defensive side?
I just think it's just the way we get after it in practice every day. The guys are really aggressive, very competitive. And, me, myself, I think I made a big jump as being, like a two-way player this year. I take a lot of pride on defense, and I've been trying to, to make that a vocal point. I feel like everybody else is pitching in. A. Scott's a great defender. Richmond has length, and big shout out to my roommate Zuby Ejiofor. Mm-hmm. He's able to switch 1 through 5, so he makes all our jobs easier. Him being able to guard the guards on the perimeter, and I feel like everybody does a great job. I feel like Ruben Prey, he's a freshman. He plays really hard, and we just got a bunch of long, athletic players that they just want to win, and we just playing together as a unit, and doesn't get any better than that.
And RJ, for you personally, I'm interested in your story because you dealt with a lot of injuries last year. We know you had the 2 surgeries on your legs. How challenging was that, one? And two, what did you learn about yourself in battling through that and coming out on the other side a better player than you were last year?
I mean, it was definitely challenging. It was very frustrating just knowing I couldn't be the player that I envisioned myself in, just the type of player that works hard. And, last year I broke my hand. I was dealing with shin splints. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like everything happens for a reason. I feel like God has paved the way for me, and I feel like it doesn't get any better. I had my shin surgery on both of my legs, and it was a successful surgery. And, I mean, I feel like there's nothing really holding me back, and I'm just thankful really that I could just, play the sport that I love. And, I mean, really, I just give it to God, for allowing me to be healthy and keep on taking care of me. And as far as what I learned is just to stay level-headed, really just trust the process no matter, what you're going through as far as like adversity. And I mean, that's really it. And just keeping a close circle around me to, keep my head up, stay positive.
You guys beat Marquette on Tuesday. You beat the 2-time defending champs on Friday. What does Saturday have in hold here? Because does Coach give you the day off here? You guys back in the weight room? What do you got today?
No, it's a pretty good week. Now we have the day off. We'll practice tomorrow. Sunday, Monday, get ready for Villanova on Tuesday. But it was a great week. I mean, I'm just excited. It's crazy. We beat 2 top 25 teams, and I don't think it gets better than that. And I mean, everything is great when you're winning. So.
No question about it. It's so fun to watch you play and your team play as well. That's RJ Lewis Jr. RJ, thank you so much for joining us on Countdown to Game Day. In my opinion, front runner for Big East Player of the Year this year. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
One of our favorite parts of the show every single week, Harry, getting to talk to College Game Day's very own Jay Williams, and he joins us now from inside Hilton Coliseum. Jay Will, thank you so much for hopping on with us before you guys get cooking today. Let's start with the team that the thousands of fans are packed inside Hilton to see today, coming up at noon Eastern time. Iowa State skids into this one, having lost 3 straight. Obviously, the absence of Milan Momcilovic playing a big part in this, but what's the ceiling for Iowa State when he is healthy?
National championship. I mean, look, these things happen, and I understand that losing 3 games in the Big 12, you lose 3 games in the SEC, obviously increased minutes here for Iowa State, players playing more minutes, and with the phonetic style they play defensively, that could take away from legs offensively. But teams go through ups and downs, and what I always try to say, Sammy Harry, is that it's about, can you be healthy at the right time of the year, right? So obviously, when you lose a player like Momcilovic, it forces other players to step up into other roles that they're slightly uncomfortable with. But what that does for your team is ultimately that experience can come into play when he comes back, because now you've added depth, now you've added understanding of how to do things without one of your stars. And that's where I think the real punch is going to come. How do you tread water? How do you stay alive in the Big 12 race? How do you keep seeding alive? And then how do you get your team in the best beneficial spot to remain healthy when you enter the Big 12 tournament and an NCAA tournament as well?
Jay, what are the things that TCU can take away from this Iowa State losing streak to try to use to their advantage to pull off an upset today?
Well, I think what I just mentioned about the legs, right? So I think it's to make Iowa State work defensively and dig into those legs. I mean, that's one of the things that people don't talk about. We are now in February, and as much as people try to say, oh, these guys are only playing 30, 40 games, when you play at the style in these conferences, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, your legs get heavy. They get heavy. And, when you have these quick turnarounds, 2-3 days, to dig into that, do the extra cuts to execute on the offensive end, and to play with a higher pace and quickness. And I think that's what you're going to see TCU try to do today to get the win on the road.
Jay Will, you were on the call for the Duke-Syracuse game on Wednesday night. It was a lot more of the same for the Duke Blue Devils. I get that the ACC is down this year. I get that. But regardless of conference, Duke is one of, if not the best teams in all of college basketball this year. They get a test today against a Clemson team that's won 6 of their last 7, and Duke goes on the road inside Littlejohn. What kind of threat do the Tigers pose to the Duke Blue Devils today, if any, in your opinion?
I mean, it's a legit one. I mean, look, Chase Hunter has been playing like one of the best players in the country, averaging 18 points a game. I really think Clemson needs to split the floor and get anywhere between 15 to 18 threes made in the ball game. But the reality is that, Duke's average size is 6'7" and a half. Okay, their average size. Clemson, out of their top 8 rotational players, only have 3 players that are 6'6" or above. So Duke's size advantage is something that's going to be critical, and them getting offensive rebounds. And look, the reality is, with their size and their wingspan, they play gaps in defense, so there are no areas to drive. That's why I think the outside shot for Clemson has to be a real thing, because if they can make outside shots, then they can force Duke's perimeter defense to extend, which inevitably opens up driving lanes to get to the rim.
Jay, staying on the topic of your Blue Devils, Cooper Flagg obviously took the lead in the Player of the Year race after Johni Broome went down to injury, but he's been back, has sort of closed the gap according to Vegas. How do you sort of see this Player of the Year race playing out?
All right, so a couple of things. I think right now that Cooper Flagg is winning the race, and I give it to you for a multitude of reasons. Number one, they won the head-to-head battle, right? And I said 2 weeks ago that I thought Johni Broome was ahead of the race, but this is what I've been thinking about. Watching Cooper Flagg play is leading his team in every statistical category, pretty much, in points and rebounds and steals and assists. He's the de facto point guard for this team, and also the fact that he's the second youngest player in college basketball. And that, at 18 years old, going against a guy, Johni Broome, is 24 years old, who's been around the game for a very long time. But I think those are the kind of things that you start looking at when you think about National Player of the Year. And look, Johni Broome is very special. I'm not going to say he's not. He still has a legitimate chance to win in National Player of the Year. But when you look at Cooper Flagg, I saw over close to 9,000 to 10,000 fans in the stadium at Syracuse for the Duke game. Like, it's appointment TV when Cooper Flagg comes into town. And I said before that I think he's probably the most complete and skilled player that Duke has had combined in the history of Duke for freshmen. And I stand by that. I know there's comments like Grant Hill, Kyrie Irving, Paolo Banchero, Jabari Parker. But what he does in a defensive end and combined to what he does in an offensive end, I've never seen a player like that for a freshman at Duke University.
Get you out of here on a little bit of a Big East conversation. Probably the game of the season last night between St. John's and UConn in that conference. What a week for St. John's, right? They get Marquette at the Garden on Tuesday night. They dispatch them. Then they go up to Gamble. And in Stores, they were down by 14 in the game, and then they come back and win. They put on a defensive clinic in that game, Jay Will. How good is this St. John's team?
I mean, they're really good. I mean, the team is in first place in the Big East. And I'm going to say this. It's just funny. Being a kid from New Jersey, we always used to joke around, guards from the New York area, right? Because guards from the New York, they stereotypically, they couldn't shoot, right? Kids from Jersey, like, we were the shooters. But people from New York, like, they were in your face. They were gritty. They raked you every time you came to the rim. You left with scratches all over your arms. You were beat up, right? And I go back to the old school days for St. John's, the Eric Barkleys, the LeVar Postels, all the Bootsy Thorntons that played there. I mean, they had guys who were grown men, and that's what this team is. You talk about R.J. Lewis. You talk about the guys like Shadari Richmond, the way they played. Now, look, for a team that doesn't shoot the ball that well from the three-point line, one of the worst in the country, they still find ways to rack you, and they're still frenetic defensively. They're everywhere. And it's time that we start talking about Rick Pitino in the GOAT conversation. I know he's in the elite of the elite with 2 national championships, bringing 3 teams to the Final Four. But if he finds a way to get this St. John's team deep with the way he's being able to build with NIL, Wall Street, Rick Pitino, it just goes together. It's one of the best stories we have in college basketball.
St. John's is a sleeping giant in college basketball, I think, and you got Coach Pitino behind it right now. Going to be really interesting to see what this team does in March. All right, Jay, we'll let you get back to work. Appreciate you hopping on with us today.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, let's check out today's Magic Moment covered by State Farm. Magic may be the only way to describe this past week for Coach Cal and the Arkansas Razorbacks. A week ago, Lyles, Coach Cal makes his return to Rupp Arena, right? And he delivered maybe his best coaching performance ever in Rupp Arena. The irony in that is tremendous. But then on Wednesday, they go on the road and they take down Texas, an NCAA tournament team, 78-70, a game which they led by as many as 23 points. A lot of people figured that after this Arkansas team lost Boogie Flan, who was likely a first-round pick, a freshman this year, and one of the best in the country, after they lost him in January, a lot of people thought this was the end of the road for Arkansas this year. But here they are, winning 2 straight in the SEC. Mm-hmm. Are you buying or selling an Arkansas resuscitation this year?
I try to be an optimist, but this morning I went and I looked at the standings because I was like, I just want to see it in front of me.
Yeah.
They're still 3-6 in conference. Obviously, if they were to do well, especially in SEC play, that obviously helps their resume. But just looking at what is in front of them.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a bad basketball team by any means.
No, it's
but
not.
when you look at the standings, you would think that they are. And just seeing everything that's in front of them, I think the hill is a little bit too steep for them to climb.
If you wanted to go glass half full, you could say, well, look at all the opportunities ahead of them that they have to win some games. But we'll see what happens with the Arkansas story. In the meantime, let's get our chief bracketologist, Joe Lunardi, in on this conversation. Joe, I heard that you were a Kansas City Chiefs fan, but I'm being proven wrong. Is that what do we got on today?
Yeah, I think the red would kind of clash with the background, so I didn't want to blend in. And hey, born and bred a Philly guy, Big Five, Eagles, Phillies. I mean, what do you expect? And it's one of our own. It's Jason Kelce.
There we go. Perfect. No, nothing better. Let's talk.
And he signed it.
And he signed
it.
Wow. How about that? Let's talk some basketball here because, Joe, it's like getting down to the stretch here. And I want to get your thoughts on this Arkansas situation here. I'm not saying that Arkansas is an NCAA tournament team. They are far from it at the moment. But when you look at the opportunities that they have this year, and we followed along the SEC storylines of how they're going to likely break the most teams making it in from the same conference that the Big East set back in, 2011. The SEC doesn't have a chance just to break it this year, Joe, but my point is they have a chance to really shatter it.
Well, it starts at the very top, Sam. I mean, Auburn is lapping the field.
Yeah.
They have as big a lead for the number 1 overall seed as any team I can remember.
Wow.
Maybe going back to Kentucky with Anthony Davis, the team that got to 37-0 going to the Final Four. I mean, to play the toughest schedule in America and be 20 games over 500, like, are you kidding me? But that's what they are. And that was without their best player for a week or two. So, that's at the top of the SEC, but it's really in the middle and at the bottom where they're going to break the record. And you say Arkansas is far from an NCAA team. I think they're a lot closer than that. I have them as the first team out.
Wow.
Now, if they were to move in, and certainly a win over Alabama tonight would seemingly do that, pending results elsewhere, they wouldn't necessarily bump a fellow SEC rival, at least not immediately. But there are vulnerable teams as well. Georgia is vulnerable. Vandy is vulnerable to a lesser extent, maybe Oklahoma. But at the end of the day, I would put the over for SEC teams in the tournament, whatever the line is, 11.5, let's say. I would take the over. And why aren't we setting a line for that, by the way?
That's a good question.
Yeah, we honestly should. And Joe, I'm curious from your perspective, because a lot of people can go look at any sort of stats, I like to call it box score watching, right? And just sort of look at the numbers and try to say, hey, this team might be a dark horse, that team might be a dark horse. Who are the teams that you have watched this year that you feel like people are not talking about nearly enough? Because we know that like Duke and Auburn, right, they're in their own tier, maybe even 1 or 2 tiers below that. Who are the teams that you've watched where you're like, that team could be dangerous in March?
Yeah, I approach it this way, Harry. We know that not all the 1 seeds are going to make it through to San Antonio, right? I mean, they might, but it's only happened 1 time in 40 years. So if you want to die on that hill when you're picking your bracket, have at it. The odds are not in your favor. So I call them down ballot teams in the major conferences, flying under the radar a little bit, but who are picking up big wins because of their own talent and the strength of their league. And a couple of weeks ago, I pointed out Texas A&M and Texas Tech. I also pointed out Oregon, so maybe we won't mention that. But Texas A&M is now up to a 2 seed. Buzz Williams, experienced guy, taking multiple programs to the second weekend, really like the Aggies. And Texas Tech, I thought, in the Big 12, kind of under the radar, not Kansas, not Iowa State, not Arizona, which is a quiet 10-1 in that league after starting 4-5. So that, to me, that Arizona-Texas Tech game late tonight might be my favorite on the schedule, at least as we approach those noon tips in the East.
I'm 100% with you. Graham McCaskill, that Texas Tech team is a lot of fun to watch. And you said it, yeah, the game tonight's a little late night, but it'll lead you right into your Super Bowl, Joe, with the Eagles tomorrow. So thank you so much for hopping on with us. Really appreciate it.
You bet. I think, just so you know, a scoop for next week, the Eagles are going to be the 1 seed in the East.
There we go. Awesome stuff, Joe. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you hopping on with us on the Countdown to Game Day again. This was great. And I think when you look at the Texas Tech teams that have been so good, by the way, that was your magic moment covered by State Farm. Like, they have a game against Arizona tonight that I don't know that a lot of people are talking about. But
yeah, no, for sure. And they're one of those teams, too, that unless they're immediately in your face, like, they're going to fly under the radar. But I like teams that are in that position.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to grow. They're still doing well, and you can still come into your own as March approaches. And it's going to be one of those teams that people end up loving.
An awesome slate of games today. We talked about the Duke Clemsons. We talked about the Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, and Auburn inside Neville Arena today. That's a top 10 matchup as well. So a ton of basketball for you to watch on the ESPN family of networks. That's going to do it for us, alongside Harry Lyles Jr. and our wonderful crew here at ESPN. I'm Sam Ravech saying so long. Thanks for watching Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm.
Go green.